Stranger Things Season 3 has finally arrived, and it was such a great season.
Welcome to Recap Rewind Wrap Up. I'm J-Lag.
And I'm N-Bea, and we'll be talking all things Stranger Things Season 3.
So we're going to take it by episode by episode, and we're just going to discuss the high-level points of each episode and just kind of talk about what happened and our thoughts on each part. So let's start with the Season 3, Episode 1 premiere episode, and it's called Susie, Do You Copy?
Yeah, so I think right off the start, the whole season was super exciting because it's based in the summer.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and the kids are on summer break, and it's just it's almost like Independence Day, and so
Right.
the vibe was already so exciting, and we were all so excited for it.
And it was so different,
so,
right? From to your point, last couple seasons always kind of, for one, they were released in the fall, so they always had that kind of Halloween-y.
And they did take place over Halloween, right? Because the kids do go trick-or-treating.
Right.
So
right.
just definitely exciting new kind of vibe going on
For sure.
for season 3. And that obviously brings in new drama because the kids don't actually have to go to school now.
Yeah.
People have Steve has a new job.
Yeah, he's working at the Starcourt Mall
Ice cream shop.
as an ice cream boy in his cute little Sailor Man outfit. And
what did you think about the mall being the epicenter of all things?
You know what?
Season
I
3.
loved it. And I feel like I know a few people who are a little bit older than we are, because I don't remember the 80s that well because we were born later. But there were some people who were like, oh my God, JCPenney and The Gap. Seeing all those old school signs were big indicators for some people. So I thought it was really cool having this kind of central area. I think for 1, 2, we kind of got the lazy small town already in season 1 and season 2. So bringing in a corporation and a mall and changing the entire experience.
And I think that's what was happening, right? In a bigger sense too, it was becoming these really big box stores. And I just think it totally worked. Sad that we're probably not going to see Starcourt Mall in the next season because it's probably whatever they're done with the set.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I love the vibe and the stores. You're right, the logos, seeing all of that. Yeah. It was really cool. And so most of the things start to happen in Starcourt Mall.
Yeah, it's kind of you're right. It is the epicenter of all the major plot points because like you said, Steve is working there with his new kind of chick, co-girl. Robin, and Dustin kind of gets looped into that, and then later on Erica gets looped into that, Lucas's younger sister. So since we're talking about this, let's really quickly talk about the new characters that got introduced. So I already mentioned a few of them. What did you think of this expansion of the cast?
I loved it. I think they needed it. It wasn't a huge expansion. I think we got Who do we get? We get Robin.
We got Robin, Erica. And
Erica's been in the seasons, but this one definitely she had a bigger role.
A main character, yeah.
Who else? I think that was pretty much.
I guess those were the big ones, but then also seeing the kids older was also kind of, I can't say a new cast, but it's almost to your point, they're in the summertime. Their experiences in life are so different, and every single time they flash back to season 1 and season 2, I'm like, holy crap, these guys grew so fast over the last 2-3 years that we haven't seen them. And just knowing that they're trying to move on with their lives and it all kind of coming back now it was a cool way to start it up
for sure. And you definitely do see Mike and Elle making out in her bedroom, so you're oh my God, this is now full-fledged teenage years. But also I think just talking about what you said, in terms of the cast, we do get to see a lot of the Russians this season, which
oh my God. Yeah.
That brings up a whole new slew of characters.
Right.
And that was the biggest probably storyline throughout the season, aside from the big monster.
And that's how the whole season starts, right? With them testing the machine. I guess it's in Russia originally, and it's not opening, and then it doesn't work. Or I think that
I think
that is at
scene,
Starcourt, right?
Yeah, the scene that we open up with the whole season when we see them basically trying to open up the vagina wall. It's we don't know it at the time, but it's obviously we find out later that it was all taking place underneath Starcourt Mall. So that's how the whole season starts. and you're already like, oh my God, like the Russians are coming, but like little do we know, like they're already here.
They already been done there, yeah.
So obviously Will, because he's got like a freaking sixth sense, he already like feels that something is wrong or like something is gonna happen.
So we can talk about all the characters as we go through every episode, but can we really quickly talk about poor Will and how he's been he was third wheeled basically this entire season?
I know, and I kind of, I guess we can talk about this later too, but I really did expect a bigger arc for him this season.
Me too.
I felt like they were leading up to something really big with him, because he was like, I feel so left out and all my friends are like talking to girls and I'm not, and like I felt like they were really going somewhere with his character.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a meltdown. Like he fully had a freaking meltdown.
Right.
And like, nothing really comes of it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was that big moment where I think it is. I don't think it's a little bit earlier on where they're trying to he's trying to still play the D&D game and they're all hung up on their girls. Like Lucas and Mike is mad that 11 broke up with him. So he's just trying to play the game, but then he's like, fuck this, I'm leaving. So he like tries to bike away. And then it's interesting because I've been reading a few reviews here and there. And one of the things that I noticed is Mike says something along the lines of, it's not my fault that you don't like girls. And, you know, Will gives him a bit of a look, almost like as if the audience isn't supposed to know that he doesn't like girls and maybe he is a gay character.
That honestly, as soon as Mike said that, I thought that's where they were going with it.
Right.
I really did, because like the way he even took it, like he just looked so offended and he looked so like hurt and like So I'm like, oh shit, like they're gonna go there, but then it never did. So I was like, oh okay.
And I think I read some interviews where people were saying that, you know, it's kind of left up to the imagination of the viewer to decide whether or not he is a gay character right now, just because at the same time, they are still so young. And while the other kids are getting into the romance of things, it is pretty common for a gay character to get there earlier.
Maybe that too. And also I think just in general, like as a young kid, maybe he just wasn't like, let's not forget this kid like suffered for 2 seasons and like barely like had time to play with his friends. So like he just feels like he's behind and that he hasn't like played the game as much as he wanted to. So he's like, yo, where you guys at? Like,
yeah, true. It's true. So in episode 1, just kind of finishing it all back. So we talked about the summer and, you know, Nancy and Jonathan are working at a newspaper and they're still together. We talked about everybody else. Dustin is back from summer camp. And while he's back at summer camp, he's talking about his girlfriend, Susie. And everybody's like, you have a fake girlfriend. But then he ends up setting up this radio tower at the top of a hill and he tries to contact them or contact her, and she doesn't show up. But instead, he intercepts a Russian signal. And that is kind of his storyline and how that kind of ends up going where it goes. And all the while, going back to Will really quickly, Will starts to sense, he gets like the kind of pricklies in the back of his neck and he realizes that something could be wrong, but he kind of brushes it off in episode 1. So that's episode 1, Susie Do You Copy. It was really fun to see all the new the characters all over again and see some of the new characters and how they interact with the kids. And let's get into episode 2, and it's called The Mallrats. And I think that even at the end of the first episode, that's when Billy is about to sleep with our girl, right?
The mom,
Yeah, Mrs. Wheeler. And he ends up getting kidnapped or something along those lines by the mind flayer monster that's living now in Hawkins. So that's kind of where we leave his character off. I forgot to talk about Billy, even though he's like one of the central characters.
Yeah,
this season.
he's but you're right. I think it really all starts in that moment where you're testing Mrs. Wheeler and you're like, oh my God, is she gonna go screw Billy?
Yeah.
And then his night kind of gets all fucked up because his car, he gets into an accident, and then we see it all kind of unfold. So she doesn't end up going to see him. So that was like a good thing for her on her end.
Just as an aside, really quickly though, I want to say that I was kind of waiting for that moment for Mrs. Wheeler to like bang him. I was like, do it.
You know what?
Do it.
Yeah, I think I wanted her to do it because like the husband is such a like he's
loser.
So boring and like
boring.
But then in the end I'm like no, like it wouldn't have been good for her character.
Yeah.
I think she's that pivotal mom, supportive, like loving, caring.
True. That's true.
You know, character. So they just couldn't do it.
For
I feel
her.
like fully. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he gets kidnapped. So in episode 2, it kind of all takes place at the mall. And this is because 11 officially breaks up with Mike, and Max kind of takes her under her wing and is like, let's do our own thing. Let's have girls only a situation. She like fucks off with 11. So that's kind of their
love that
shopping moment, which was adorable. I loved like their outfits were so 80s, and it was just like fun watching two girls have a good time. You know what I mean? Like,
and watching Elle like discover that side too, whereas like
true.
She was in a moment infatuated with Mike, but then he broke her heart. He lied to her, whatever. Right. And then she flipped the switch. She was like, okay, now it's just like girl time. So like her discovering these little pockets of relationships that she can have.
Right.
It was just, yeah, like sometimes you forget that like she didn't know any of this like last year or like the year before. Yeah. You know?
And all the while, it is a good point too that for one, I don't think that she's going to school yet, right? Like she's not at school. Like, so she's still not allowed to be out. Cause I think at one point
she can't be in the public.
Right. So there's that whole situation. She's still living with Hopper. And so she is surrounded by so many men in her life and so many boys that seeing her hang out with Max, even though Max is a little bit more of a tomboy, she was able to kind of take her through like all the girly things, which I was living for.
Yeah, she switched up so hard. I was like, Mad Max? I'm like, what?
Like she's cool. She's got like all these girly things going on. So they have their moment and they play a few like slumber party games where they're, checking in on people. And I think at the end of this episode, this is when they do a quick like sneak on Billy and like using 11's superpowers. And then they see him like killing somebody or putting somebody
like
away.
Drowning.
Yeah,
like drowning the girl
or making her face get sucked in by the monster. So she was like, something's wrong here. So that's how that episode ends. But going back to the rest of it, Dustin comes to Steve and Robin to talk about this Russian situation. He's like, there's this Russian signal and I don't know Russian. So obviously Steve and Dustin try to figure it out, but it doesn't work because they're boys and they're idiots. But then Robin comes in and suddenly she knows how to speak like 17 languages and she starts to decode this message, which was kind of cool to see that she had like, she had something to bring to the table as well. And and this is when, like I mentioned before, Will is like, we're just doing a boys' day, we're doing D&D, and then that's when he has his breakdown in this episode, which was kind of a sad moment for him. On the adult side of things, Joyce and Hopper, they end up going to Hawkins' lab to see if there's anything going on there. And they end up stumbling on this like Terminator character. And I want to say Terminator character, but I should just say Arnold Schwarzenegger reincarnated.
Yeah, totally. He was definitely,
like they literally, like, I feel like the casting for him was someone that looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator.
Yeah.
Like they
has that like Russian robot vibe going on. Like
I fully thought that he was a robot at one point. I'm like, okay, he's a robot. But so they get into a fight with him and Hopper gets beaten up and then this guy drives away on his motorcycle, but somehow Joyce is able to write down like 3 numbers from the freaking license plate number. So that's the big thing that happens this episode. Once again, all the while with Nancy and Jonathan, they're still hating their jobs, and I think this is when Nancy finds out about the like rotten the rabid rats in the woman's house. I think that's also what happens.
Right. Like, I don't know. I feel like Nancy and what's his face? Jonathan's storyline was a little like meh.
Yeah, I agree.
But they did impress me by the end.
Right.
And I did still appreciate their storyline because obviously like Nancy and Jonathan are working for a newspaper, and she's all like getting like freaking harassed because like she's the only woman in the freaking thing. Like it was a very like typical, like I expected it all to go down the way it did.
Right.
And she basically kind of convinces Jonathan to like help her on this lead, know, and like do their own story. But in doing so, stuff happens. I don't know if I'm getting too ahead of
no.
the,
episode. I think they do in this episode go visit the old lady, and they show her the rat, and he takes some pictures, and then right before she decides to like, you know, keep watching this rat, and he's like squirming all over the cage. She's like, I found another lead, and then they disappear, and then they watch this rat explode. And the rat kind of like comes out of the cage, and it's like,
yeah. Well, we don't see that. It's all like they don't see it. We see it all happening.
Yeah.
And we're like, what the F is that in the freaking rat?
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously we're like, oh shit.
I'm like, oh, dramatic timing. Sometimes they make like, I love this show and I love the suspense that they give it, but I was getting so.
Yeah, you gotta really let go of a lot of stuff.
It's true. So anyway, Nancy's on her own thing. That happens later in next episode. But speaking of next episode, we're moving to the case of the missing lifeguard. Though. So Elle and Max are still by themselves, and they're now on the hunt for Billy. Because they're like, what did he do? Where's this girl? Who did he take?
Where's that mystery girl? Right. Yeah, like what's going on?
So I think they start to find a few clues. They find blood in his bathroom, and
they find like ice in his bathtub. They're like, what the F? Like, and then Max is like, no, like he just goes to the gym. Like he's totally fine. Right. Elle's like, no. Like
this
something is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And so when they find the bloody, I think it's like a little knapsack.
It was like a fanny pack.
Yeah, it's a little lifeguard fanny pack, and they go back to the swimming pool, and they ask around like, whose is this? And they find out that it's this girl, and so it's the same girl, Heather, that we saw the episode before, getting her face smacked on by the flare, and so that whole thing happens. They continue to investigate, and then they use that like piece to find her, and she's also in a pool of water, but she's like drowning at this point.
Yeah.
So like,
and at this point, like Elle's trying to like save her, and so
so they're like, okay, now we gotta find find Billy, and we also gotta figure out like where this girl is.
Yeah.
So that's happening, and then Steve,
they do go to they find her house, right? Let's just kind of close off that storyline. So they do go to her house. They find out like where she lives, and she's the daughter of like the newsman who like Nancy's basically working for.
Exactly.
They're like the rich like family,
right,
in Hawkins. Anyway, so then they show up. Billy's fully like sitting with her family in the dining room, and he's like, "What the F are you guys doing here?" He's like, this is my little sister, whatever.
Yeah, and he's like totally normal the entire time.
Totally normal. Even Heather's like totally like normal. Like they look weird, but like to the normal person, to Max and Elle, like they look fine. And Heather's like, whatever, I've been here, like we're all good. So they leave.
Yeah. So they dip, but then literally as soon as they leave, Billy grabs a freaking wine bottle and bashes the dad over the head.
Yeah. The mom is poisoned, so like the mom collapses. Yeah. And then Billy, or like I think it was Heather, she like whips her dad over the freaking head.
Yeah, it was Heather.
And then we're like, oh, okay.
Okay, here we go. So then they get taken away, and then they get eaten by the mind flayer. So we're like, okay, cool. So what did you think of this whole idea that like bodies were like, it was like body snatchers essentially, right?
I liked it. I liked it. I understand he's building an army essentially, or he's building like more power for himself. Is that what was happening?
Yeah. So yeah, and that's why they were drinking all the chemicals, but they couldn't figure that out until a little bit later. So what happens with Steve and Dustin, and I guess Robin at this point, is they're still trying to decode this thing, but now they're trying to find, I think they figured out what the code was thanks to Robin, and now they need
they were still looking for, they were in the mall, and Robin was still in the ice cream shop working.
Right.
And she was trying to decipher the code. Meanwhile, freaking Steve and Dustin are like, no, let's look for the Russians. There must be Russians in the mall. Like, we'll spot them out. Like, they look like Russians.
Right.
Of course, like, boys are so stupid.
So dumb.
So this was one of my favorite scenes when they see the guy that looked like a Russian with the ponytail.
Yeah.
And then they follow him all the way through the mall, and he ends up like as the jazzercise instructor for all the moms. I was dead. So obviously, like Steve and Dustin, they didn't really get anywhere with that. But in the meantime, Robin sort of decodes the like it's Silver Cat, whatever, when the
China,
blue and the yellow, whatever. So she sees like the delivery guy, and then she sort of pieces it like together by like standing in the middle of the mall.
Yeah. And then so she figures out that there's like deliveries that are happening at a certain time at night. So they find out where it is, and they scout it out, and they realize that there's these literal like armed guards arming this one specific room. So like now our mission is to get into this room. So that happens in this episode. And then moving on to episode 4, the sauna test.
Yeah. So, I think this was probably my favorite.
Yes, I agree.
Like aside from the finale, this was probably the most like crazy fun episode to watch.
I think for one, this episode is really good because you're right. It's kind of the dead center of the season. So things kind of start to shift, and you start, as much as I love the fact that they have this kind of formula when it comes to Stranger Things, and you know, everybody's doing their own thing and then they all kind of come together at the very end. I started to get really impatient by episode 4. Like, can we all just get together? Can everybody just share all this information? And so, and then somebody solve this fucking thing because it's going to get crazy soon. So, what happens is, Elle and Max, they finally figure out that they need to look at, like, find Billy. And so they're like, we're going to go find Billy. But then the boys on the other side, they start to feel like there's something wrong because Will calls a code red and says that like he thinks that the mind flayer is back, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of connects them, because I think the girls, they know where Billy is, but they're like, there's something wrong with him. Like, he still didn't look normal to them. Yeah. So them saying that, and then the guys being like, Will thinks that something's back, like they kind of put 2 and 2 together to be like, could he be a host? Could he be infected? Right. Like, what's happening? And so that sort of brings them together to like figure that out. Yeah. About Billy. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And on the flip side with Nancy's storyline, it kind of goes dead in the water right away as soon as she presents it to Tom. I think his name is Tom. And but at this point in time, Tom is also he's also a zombie, right? So
he's infected at this point. Yeah. So he's already pissed. He hates them. Like he probably wants to eat their faces off.
Right. And so he kind of like leaves that, but then he says, like, he tells them to drop the story, but then at the same time, she kind of still wants to check on this woman. So whatever. So Karen, which is her mom, Mrs. Wheeler, she ends up having this really adorable moment, which I fucking loved. I don't know if you remember this conversation that she has with Nancy, where basically Nancy has a fight with Jonathan, where Jonathan is like, we don't understand each other. You want all these things and I don't want any of them. And all you want to do is like solve this problem because you live in a bubble and like we all have to hustle or whatever. So she goes back to her mom, and then her mom has this amazing conversation with her where she's like, you're always going to feel like you're down. You're always going to feel like no one can let you do anything because you're a woman, but you should never give up. You should always push harder. And I loved it. Like, I thought that it was such an amazing like mom moment for her to have. So that was really cute. And then on the other side of it, Robin also finds the blueprints of the mall by, I think, asking some security guy for, you know, she like bribes him, like gets the security blueprints. Yeah. And so she finds out where everything is, how to get into that room. And she finds like a vent. And then she was like, okay, we got to go through this vent, but no one's big enough to go into this vent. And,
small enough, yeah.
Small enough to get into the vent. And this is when Erica, our girl Erica,
she's like, you want me to go in that thing? I was like, this girl's amazing.
So much toot, and I was like so into it. So I was so excited to have her as a part of the cast.
You know what? It just all fits so well together. Like every single episode, I was like, oh my God, like it clicked. Like Dustin coming, you know, to Steve, and then like Robin being there, and then like now Erica's in the mix too. Like it all just, they were so cute together, all 4 of them.
And I think this is the episode that they also open the door. So what did you think of the fact that Dustin wasn't a part of the core for this
I didn't
season?
mind it. I didn't mind it. And that's what I mean. I think they built such a cute little like side core group. Yeah. That I think it all made sense. I think it worked. Because they had to give Steve like a bigger storyline as well, and
it's
the through line, and you know, him and Robin being like the older kids out of Erica and Dustin, like it just made sense. I didn't mind it at all. Yeah. And the other group already had enough people like Mike and Lucas Max and Elle, and like there's already too many of them on that side. So it all worked out, I think.
Yeah. So at that point in time, this is when they do this. What the episode's called the sauna test is because what they are planning to do is take Billy once the whole pool is closed, because now they're watching him and he looks really shady. Like he's wearing his clothes. They're like, why is he not shirtless? Like he's usually like showing off his body.
Yeah.
Like they're starting to see that he's physically, something's wrong with him. So they decide to do this sauna test where they basically want to put him into the sauna and then turn up the heat and then see if he reacts, because that's what happened with Will. So that's what they do. They end up like figuring out this whole plan. They lure him into the sauna and then they close the door on him and lock him in there. And then they blast it. And then sure enough, he starts to show signs that he's like this possessed. Demon.
Yeah, possessed. Like it was such a cool, like all of that whole sequence of them, you know, even planning on how to get him into the sauna and like lock him in there. Like it was so well played.
Yeah.
So they lock him in there and they close it. I'm like, guys, this pipe is not gonna like, it's not gonna work. Like he's gonna bust out of here. And I have to say, like the actor, I think his name is Dacre Montgomery.
Yeah.
He like killed it this season. Like he was so well. Effing good.
Yeah.
You know, it was huge shoes to fill as being like the main villain of the season.
Yeah.
And I think he absolutely like murdered it. He was so effing like so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
On screen. Like I loved watching him because he's like really hot.
Yeah.
And he just looks so evil, but like there's still something about him that like you love.
Yeah.
And I think in this moment, you know, they kind of play with that when he's trapped in the sauna, and you see that demon kind of like coming out, but then it goes back to like kind of fool them to be like, no, like help me, like I'm
Max,
stuck in here,
just me.
Like come on,
yeah.
I'm your brother. And like she starts to fall for it. She like goes right up to the glass and she's like, oh my god, like my brother, like we have to save him.
I'm like, girl, don't be that stupid.
I'm like, back the fuck up. Like listen to who's it, Ludacris? Back the fuck up, bitch.
Move back.
Yeah. So of course she doesn't, and then like he kind of like in the meantime he grabs like, what was it, like a piece of glass or something?
Yeah, he like grabs a piece of tile, I think, that broke, and
oh god. And then he like lunges for the glass.
Yeah, and he breaks it open.
Thank God, like she lunges back.
Yeah.
Because he breaks through.
Yeah. He punches through the window, and now they realize that he has super strength. So the one thing that I will give them is that, of course, they didn't know what they were dealing with. Like they knew they were dealing with a mind flayer, but at the same time, when it was in Will's body, they just, you know, tied him to a bed, and like he was kind of just like floating off the bed.
Yeah, because Will weighs like 60 pounds.
Right, but they didn't realize that like Billy has got so much strength already that he was going to have this essentially he was like a superhero, or a supervillain, if you want to look at it that way. And so there's this like right in episode 4 we get this amazing fight scene between him and Elle, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was so intense,
and it was fucking scary, like terrifying,
so scary.
Like thinking about it now, I'm like getting goosebumps because there were so many moments where I'm like, are they gonna kill her off? Are they gonna kill off Mike? Like there were so many moments.
Yeah, and just pushing her to her max. Like she could, like you could tell she was using all her strength to kind of, you know, keep him at bay. And it was just crazy, guys. Like it was such a good fight sequence, and my heart was racing.
Yeah. So what happens essentially is he breaks out of the sauna. He starts choking Elle. But then somebody tries, I think it's Mike, tries to stop him, and then he like dashes Mike to the side. So Mike is now like unconscious, and then she uses a like what is it called, like a weight to like try to choke him, but it doesn't work. And then she like chucks him out the window. Like she uses all of her last abilities to throw him out of the pool. Like so he's like gone. So he runs away. Like he's like, ah! Like he's just like running into the darkness. They're like, okay, so basically he's possessed.
We're fucked now. For sure.
And now everybody's like, what the fuck are we gonna do? And this is the moment where I was watching and I was like, there is no way that they're gonna be able to beat this guy. Like they're fucked. Like they're basically fucked.
Yeah. Because Elle just can't, like, she can't keep going for that long. Right. Like she already kind of exhausted her powers in that moment.
Yeah. So moving on to episode 5, it's called The Flayed, and there are a few things that happen. So the first one is they find out that in Starcourt Mall that there is this gigantic freaking Russian base. So that's what's happening with Dustin, Robin, and Steve. So they find the base and they try to figure out what's going on there. Like, what are they building? And I think they do find out what it is exactly. They find the vagina
They see
opening.
the machine. Yeah.
Yeah. And they realize...
And the machine.
And the machine, and they realize that all those like little green things that were in the elevator, because they get stuck in the elevator at one point, they power this machine. So they're on their way, and then I think this is also when Dustin and Steve finally put together that it has to do with Elle, and it has to do with, you know, the Mind Flayer from season 2 and season 1, and there's all these connections that are starting to be that are being made, because I think originally Dustin was like, oh, this is just like a regular Russian spy moment, and he was like, once I discover this, like, I'm going to become an American hero. But now that it's all connected, it's starting to all make sense to everybody, and everybody's starting to freak out like low key. And then I think this is also when Joyce and Hopper stumble upon the farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, where they were starting to investigate all the certain places that were named. I don't know how they found.
Yeah, they go to the guy's address. I think whoever the license plate belonged to, which was the Terminator guy, they basically track him down, and I think it links back to this random like house. It looked like the house from Riverdale, on a side note. The one that like the murderer like lived in.
Oh my God, it did.
They go to this random house, and they basically find like a secret door.
Right.
From like in the floor, and they go down there, and there's like a next like base down there too.
Right.
And there's like 2 scientists or whatever, like 2 Russian scientists like down there, and then they basically capture one of them.
They kidnap one of them.
They kidnap one of them, and he sort of becomes like their intel guy, I guess.
Right.
And leads them to the next clue.
Yes. And I think the major thing that happens, I think those are the major things that happen in this episode, outside of the fact that the Mind Flayer is also slowly but surely building his army, but he's doing it very, very quickly. I think this is when Nancy finds out that the old lady is now possessed. She's like eating dirt and shit, and she's freaking out. So she's in the hospital. They take her to the hospital. She's in the hospital. Old lady. Yeah. So there's all the shit that's kind of happening on the side. But those are the major plot points that episode. So the episode 6 is called E Pluribus Unum, and it's on the American like currency, and I think it means like one of many. Yeah,
you're right, because the first thing I did was Google the title names, and for that one, that's what it said. So I was like, oh, of course, because he's duplicating a freaking army.
Exactly, and it's like we are all one person essentially. So we have a new character. So we forgot to talk about this guy, but Dr. Alexei is a scientist who ends up getting kidnapped by Hopper and Joyce, and he's such a fun character to watch. As much as he was like this like person that didn't speak English that well, he brought such a great energy to that group of people.
But you know what's amazing? I think he is the epitome of that new coming to America character, and I think you probably did see that in the 80s, and like you probably did see that in like small town America, where like new immigrants were coming in, and he was that character. Like he was like loving, especially when we see him at the carnival, like after he's like loving life, like he's so lit to be an American, or like to be part of that world. So it was really cool to see that character too. And I also think too, because they've been making the Russians look so effing shady this whole time, so I feel like to have one character that's like good and like he's a normal nice guy, like they had to do that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So they take him to see, oh God, now I forget his name too, but
damn it, what's his name? Bald Eagle. Let's call him Bald Eagle, because that was his radio name.
Bald Eagle. Yeah. So they take him to see Bald Eagle, who was in last season. He's the one that kind of hooked up Jonathan and Nancy.
He's like the investigator guy.
Right. And so he's the only one that can speak Russian, and it's this big like mission to get to him, because I think originally they were going to take the car, but the car blew up, so they had to walk there, and then they stole a car, and then they drove to the rest of the way to Illinois in like a yellow Cadillac, and
the Rod father.
The Rod, yeah,
the
Todd father.
Oh, the Todd father.
Yeah. So they're driving in the sick car. They finally get there, and then he starts to help decode what's going on, and he explains that there's this door that needs to be opened, and they have a key. And it was interesting because the question that I had was like, why is this happening now? They already know that this is a bad thing. Why are they doing it? And it brought me all the way back to season 2. And it's really interesting because I think even when the season started, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way or if you feel this way, N-Bea, but when I was watching the season, it starts off with these Russians. And the first thing I thought was the doctor from season 2, I forget his name now, but the guy with the gray hair.
Yeah.
He was like, if this, he taught, Dr. Sam Owens, I think his name is. So he tells Jonathan and Nancy when they go through the tour, and he says, if anybody else found out about what happened here, especially the Russians, they might try to do this again, and they might not see it as a mistake. Like, we as Americans see this as a big mistake. We're trying to close it now. Like, this was on season 2. So we're trying to close it now, but the Russians might open this gate up again, and like the shit is going to go down again. So if you guys expose what we're doing at this lab, then if people find out what's going on, then they're going to try to do it themselves. And that's exactly how this season starts, which kind of frustrated me because it's almost like what he said came true. And I'm like, you guys shouldn't have exposed the freaking lab, like, was that necessary for everybody in the world to find out about this secret mission? And that's basically how the Russians end up, doing what they're doing. They end up in Hawkins because they know what happened there before. So that's what Alexei's trying to explain. And he says, we might know that it's a bad thing, but he uses the analogy of like, did Einstein stop figuring out like the quantum theory or whatever the fuck that he found out? Or he's like, did Edison stop figuring out what electricity was? Like, he says, like, when you're a scientist, all you want to do is discover. You don't care about the consequences. And it's an interesting thing to talk about, like, just on a general global level outside of the show, because I think that's such an interesting theme to ever talk about, is like, why we always want technology and all these scientific discoveries, but like, what is the downside to it? What are the negatives?
Of course.
So, the consequences to it, for sure. So this is all bad consequences, obviously. So he reveals this. They're like, oh shit, we got to find out where this place is, and we need to like destroy this machine before it opens up the gate again. And so that's what their new mission is. All the while, now that Dustin and Erica and Steve and Robin are down there, and they figure out where things are, they need to get the fuck out of there, but they don't know how to get out of there because everything is like impossible to. I think they do get away last episode. Doesn't matter. Anyway, now like Dustin and Erica are gone, like they disappear, but Steve and Robin are still trapped by the Russians. So I think in this episode specifically, they want to figure out how to save them.
Yeah, and I think it made sense because it was a little unrealistic if like they got out scot-free. Like, it would have been like, okay, guys, come on.
Yeah. Already,
there's a whole Russian army in the basement, so like it made sense, and it made sense that like Robin and Steve let the kids go. They were like, get out of here first. Like, we'll be fine. Like, we'll see you guys like up there or whatever. So I think that all played out really well, and it made sense
for sure. So that's happening. So then now they want to go back and try to like help them. But then I think they said something about they need to find, Cerebro, and they need to get to a higher place where they can actually talk to them and get some help. So they end up, running away to Starcourt Mall, I think, or no, I don't remember. No, they're in Starcourt Mall. But there's Russians that are looking for them at the same time, so they have to hide. Anyway, it's this big mess of a situation that's happening with them. I think they do end up coming back for Steve and Robin, but this is only after Robin and Steve get drugged, and they start like spilling the tea on the whole like disaster of a situation. Like,
yeah, because Steve's like, I literally work for the ice cream store. Like, I don't do. And the guy's like, no, you're a secret spy. Like, you know, you came down here. And they're like, no, like, we legit, we're teenagers. But they didn't believe them.
Right.
It was funny. It was funny.
It was a funny thing to watch. And like, especially once they got drugged, like they were just like spilling all the tea and they were really, really cute. And we got a lot of amazing moments. And this is one of the first ones that we get to see Steve and Robin really have like a nice bonding moment because they're being really honest with each other. So she's like, I used to see you in school and like, I always wanted to like be you, and you know, you were such a cool kid, and I never understood why you were such a cool kid, because everybody, like, you were such a loser, you like failed school and stuff, but you know, I was kind of jealous of you. And he kind of takes this as an opportunity to be like, oh, like maybe she likes me, like maybe I like her too. So he starts to catch feelings like low key, all the while they're about to get killed. Erica and Dustin end up coming back, like they circle back once they find out their own exit, and they like get them out like right away, but they're like, you guys have to run. I don't know if it happens this episode or next episode, but anyway, things are starting to move.
Yeah, they run out. Yeah, because I think it does, because I think they run out, they save them, they got to get through the cinemas, so they go and hide in the theater while they're watching Back to the Future.
Yes.
And then at that point, Steve and Robin can't sit anymore because they're like fucking high as fuck.
Yeah.
So they go to the bathroom and they're like tripping out in the bathroom together. They like yak together. They have this whole moment together in the bathroom stall.
Right.
While Dustin and Erica are like in the theater trying to escape the Russians.
I think Dustin is trying to call for help, like calling his boys to call for help. And they're getting like not the best signal. But anyway, I think that happens a little bit later, but whatever. That's what their situation is at this time. Another thing that happens in this episode is Billy is now like doing God knows what, because he's run away. So 11 has to go find him. So she uses her powers to find him, and she touches him this time, and this time like shit goes down. So she touches him to try to make a connection with him, and she's trying to talk to him. She's like, who are you? Like, what's going on with you? Are you okay? And he like thrusts her into all these crazy childhood memories. And this moment was kind of cool too to watch, because she gets to see him as a kid and his relationship with his mom, and he was such a happy kid. And this ties into the finale. But what did you think of seeing Billy's
I loved it. It was such a beautiful moment, and I think, you know, all these types of characters, they do have these layers, and you want to get to those layers. You want to see what their like childhood was like, what are their motivations, how did they get to where they were now. So like the fact that we get a glimpse into who Billy, like why Billy is the way he is, sort of, or like one of his favorite memories, like it was huge. And it just worked so freaking well. Like it wasn't cheesy, it wasn't like I don't believe it. Like I totally fell for it, I believed it, I loved it so much.
It was really beautifully shot, and it was like, for one, it was really cool to see her like on a beach, even though it was a dream sequence. I was like, oh, California.
Totally. It takes you out. It takes you out of that world. Right. And the fact that it does come back into play in the final like few minutes of the whole season, I love that too. Like it wasn't like a waste, like just a flashback. It was like
why
it all came full circle. Yeah.
Right. And I think this is also the episode where Nancy and Jonathan have that moment in the hospital, right?
Oh my God, yeah. So like they go, that was pretty crazy too, because it was 7. So they go to the hospital to check on the old lady. They get to her room, and was she just not there?
No. So what happens with her is I think that she was like killed already. Like she visits her. We kind of forgot about them for the last like few episodes that we've been talking, but essentially she goes to visit her, and she is sleeping, but then she sees that during this it all happens during the sauna test, where she's watching her and she sees her like boiling, so while it's all happening, and then that's where the connection between Nancy and Will, so like all the kids start to come together with Nancy and Jonathan, because now they're starting to realize that there's a connection there.
So they go to the hospital together.
She does go back to the hospital with the kids, and she finds out that, I think this happened actually a few episodes back. Whatever, guys. Sorry if we're completely off, but we're trying to cover off 8 episodes in one podcast. So, so what happens in in that part is they go upstairs to go visit her because they think that if they let her go, like they release her, they'll send, like she'll run right back to where the mind flayer is.
Right.
So they go back upstairs, but she's missing.
Mind you, gone. This hospital is like effing abandoned. There's like nobody anywhere. There's one effing receptionist and she like doesn't know that anything's like going wrong.
Yeah.
Like, girl, have you not checked the other floors?
I'm like, literally, it's the emergency hospital too. Like, emergencies happen here. Like, half of it's like not even like done up right. Like, half of the rooms are like still under construction. Yeah. So anyway, they go upstairs. They find her room, but she's no longer there. She's disappeared. But now Tom, her boss, is there, and he is about to kill her ass. So she gets away. And then there's this crazy fight scene that happens. I think this all happens in episode 5, guys. Sorry. I know that we're on episode 8 or 6 now. But so everything kind of happens and she gets into a fight with him. And then all the while, Jonathan's trying to save her. But then there's that other guy from the newspaper, the guy that kind of looks like Donald Trump. And he's also possessed. So now they both are coming after both of them. It's like this crazy like attack scene, fight scene, whatever. And then what happens at the very end of that? I think they both get basically they get murked.
They get murked. But what happens is like their bodies disintegrate and they basically the monsters within the both people, like it merges together. Right. And it creates a freaking even bigger monster.
Yeah. So that bigger monster goes and attacks like Nancy. It almost kills her.
Yeah.
At the very end, Elle gets in, I think, and then she like dashes him away for a second, and then she like chucks him out a window or something. Yeah. So going all the way back to episode 6, where she's in the cabin with the rest of the crew and she's like, you know, looking for Billy now. She does find out where the like mind flayer is. Like he's in that like old factory in the middle of that storm.
And they do get attacked, right? Like eventually they do get attacked at the cabin.
They do. So that happens in episode 7. So let's move on to episode 7. It's called The Bite. And so while that whole thing is happening, she tells everybody like, yo, like Billy's like pissed. He's going to try to kill us. Like he wants the whole world to end. He explains, or I guess the mind flayer through Billy explains why he's doing what he's doing. And essentially what he says is Elle opened up the gate and now we want this world as well, essentially, right? Like that is the mind flayer's mission. He doesn't care about anything else. He just wants to take over this world. But first, what he wants to do is kill Elle. Like that's his base mission. So that's all happening. They're trying to figure it out. But now that the mind flayer is like ready to come through, they just need to like batten down the hatches. So what they do in this episode is they close all the doors in the fucking
they literally like put room. Like cardboard over the window. I was like,
guys,
do you know who you're fighting?
Like, do you understand the gravity of the situation? Literally, you guys will die in this cabin if you don't run. Like, so they did make a few choices in this episode that I was like, no, this is not how it would have made sense. Like they literally run out the door, they go see him running at them, like toward them, and then they run back into the fucking cabin. I'm like,
and like it's a cabin, like it's a shitty little cabin.
Like, what are you planning to do? So they literally like. You could have run into the car in 5 seconds and just driven away if you like knew what was best for you. So anyway, they try to like batten down the hatches. Like freaking like Nancy's out here with one shotgun. Like Jonathan has one fucking axe. Like the kids have nothing. Like Lucas has a stupid fucking slingshot that does nothing. So all this shit is happening. They're getting ready to like fight this fucking mind flayer. All the while, Hopper is also now trying to get back to Hawkins because he needs to find like now suddenly the fucking parents are like, oh, where are our kids? We need to find our kids. Like
7 episodes later.
Now that they realize that, you know, this whole thing is connected to the gate, they're like, we need to find the kids. We need to close the gate again or whatever, make sure that they're safe. So they head back to Hawkins. Especially with the Terminator man, like kind of like tracing their tracks and trying to find them as well. So that whole thing is happening. I believe this is also when they go to the is it the fair? They look for the kids at the fair,
yeah,
right?
that was a really big scene too, because they assume that the kids might be at the fair, but they're
Right.
not.
Right.
And then Alexei basically gets shot in the chest by the Terminator guy at the by the end of the whole thing.
And he does.
And he's dead. And then we cut back to the cabin, and
Right.
this is a really big moment because the mind flayer like gets into the obviously he gets into the freaking cabin. He like just tears off the roof.
He just
He,
opens up the door
roofs.
basically. Like he's this gigantic,
Yeah, like it was ridiculous.
10-foot fucking monster.
He does end up getting Elle. He like grabs her from her legs, I think, and then the gang like tries to take it from her hands, and they're fighting and whatever. They end up saving her.
Yeah,
but she does get bitten on her leg, right?
Yes. So they're trying to like take care of her, but it doesn't like work out the best way possible because it turns out that the bite that she got is infected with like a little tiny version of the mind flayer.
This scene was really cool too because they do leave the cabin.
Yeah.
I don't know if it happens in 8 or 7, but it might happen at the end of 7 when they go to the grocery store.
Yes. So they do go to the grocery store, I think, in this episode.
They break in.
They want to like heal her up and like
they need like bandages. They need like whatever. So that was a really cool sequence too, like seeing them kind of just like go off in a kind of closed down shop.
Yeah.
And then that Elle was like injured. Like she was finally like there was the first time seeing her in a helpless like place. Yeah, it was really scary.
And I think it was really cool too because like in last season as well, you know this girl has so much power and ability, and she's such like an ace like trump card in that sense where you know that she's going to be able to take care of it because she's got powers, no one else has powers, so like they need her to help them through it. But because she was incapacitated, she wasn't able to do anything, like so now these human beings have to deal with this monster on their own essentially while she's trying to heal up. So what happens in this episode as well. So yeah, they heal her up, they like clean her wound, and then they're like, let's go to Starcourt. I don't know how I think they find out where Dustin is, right? Like she uses her superpowers to find out where Dustin is. So she's on her way to see Dustin.
They all get back to the mall essentially by the end of it.
Right. And at that point in time, like I said, I don't remember if it happens in episode 7 or episode 8, but that's when she finds out that there's some shit in her leg and she like needs to get it out because it's gonna like
I think it happens maybe in 8 because I think they get to the mall and she's still not better. Like it's not like it didn't work. Like the bandages didn't work. It kept like bleeding or like something was like moving in her leg or something.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So
I love that this episode is called The Battle of Starcourt.
Yes.
Because it reminded me of the Battle of Winterfell.
Oh my God, yeah. All right.
And I was like, ooh, I wonder if they're like throwing like a nod to Game of Thrones with that title.
I feel like it's just like an epic moment because it was like a pretty epic situation.
And it was perfect that everyone ended up in that big like atrium of the mall.
Right.
It looked so cool. Everything was so well done.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically like we see the gang, they get to the mall, and then Dustin sees like he's like, guys, oh my God.
Yeah, it was such a cute moment. Like everybody,
it was cute.
Like it was so funny because everybody caught up in like 0.5 seconds, or they did this like cute circle camera moment where they're like, oh, so there's Russians, and like, oh, there's a gate opening, and oh, there's a mind flayer. Like everybody was catching up with everybody because I was like, how are these guys going to catch everybody up? Like everybody has little pieces of the story that they need to talk this through, but they really sped it up in an entertaining way. So I was really happy that they didn't spend like a good half an hour like explaining what's going on.
Yeah, and so what happens here in this moment, I think when everyone gets back, the parents find them too. Hopper's there, and the mom's there.
I think that's exactly what happens. Like she's like, I'm gonna pull it out of my leg. Like Elle's gonna use her powers, so she uses her powers to get this little piece out of her because it's crawling, literally like about to explode into her skin. So she pulls it out, she dashes it, and that's when you see Hopper's foot like squish it, and then he's like, I'm here, daddy's home, or whatever. So now everybody's back together, everybody's catching each other up. Hopper and Joyce are on a mission to destroy the machine, and they're going to use the help of Bald Eagle to do that. And Nancy and Jonathan are now supposed to, like, the idea is that they're supposed to take the kids away and like hide them at Bald Eagle's place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like the main plan, but that all gets kind of shitted on because, for one, the monster is literally at Starcourt Mall. And
well, like, I already knew this was going to happen. They all get into Nancy's freaking station wagon.
Yeah.
And her car doesn't start. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Obviously, like, Billy did something. Because Billy does track them down to the mall.
Right.
They can't start the car. And at that point, I think they see the monster, right? And they have to run back into the mall.
They see, well, for one, they see Billy. They see Billy, like, in his car at the end of the parking lot, and he's like, vroom, 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 vroom.
Yeah, he doesn't do the thing yet. Yeah, he doesn't do that car thing yet, but I guess they run back in. Yeah.
So they run back in, and they're like, what are we going to do? Like, he's not going to let us go. And that's when the monster, I think,
is on top. He's, like, on top of the fucking glass.
Yeah.
And then... Yeah,
he crashes down and he's trying to find them, and all the guy, everybody's like hiding. The kids like hide in the Gap, and the kids hide in the movie store or whatever. So they try to get him out, but all the while they're trying to find a way to get back outside because they use the car starter from the car that was inside the mall to, like, they stole it so they can like connect it and like get it going, whatever. So what happens at that point? So I think they
get back to the car. They're all good. Right. They're fine, whatever. They get back to the car. And at this point, now Billy's back in his, like, he's still in the car.
Right.
And Nancy's like, okay, start the fucking car.
Start the fucking car.
She starts pointing the gun to Billy. Billy starts revving up his engine. This was like the craziest scene ever.
Yeah.
But all while this is happening, Dustin and his crew are at the top of the mountain.
Right.
At the highest point.
Trying to communicate and trying to stay in touch with a bald eagle, telling him like where to go in like the Russian like bunker or whatever. Right.
So they're up there, but when Steve sees the freaking monster on the mall, he's like, "Okay, I gotta go save them. Like, I can't just like stay here."
Yeah.
So that's kind of happening at the same time, and then the car starts revving. Billy's about to like kill Nancy, like basically T-bone their car.
It's literally like
it's too close.
0.2 seconds. No, I was like, this is way too close.
She would have never survived. Like, she would have been hit by like glass or like something. Like, there's no way.
And that's the thing. I'm like, this was your master plan, guys. Like, to stay in a car while he's revving up the fucking engine and about to murder your asses.
She's just shooting for like 10 seconds. I'm like, girl, just run.
Like, run.
Like, why would you stand in between the two cars? At least stand on the other side of the car where you're protected by the car.
It was so fucking stressful ridiculous to watch.
Yeah. And then in the last like second, like Steve and Robin basically like hit his car, and then he goes flying. They go flying, whatever. Yeah. And then they all try to leave again. So they try to leave the mall.
So they all disappear. But I think so. And then the monster like literally comes out at the very like same moment. So he's finds
like
them outside.
He's like, no!
Yeah. He's chasing them down the street. And
I love that there's like no cops. There's no like firefighters. There's no helicopters. Nothing. Nobody. There's nobody around.
Nobody in this town. So they're running, like they're driving away. But then you realize like, where's Mike, Elle, and Max? And I'm like, oh, fuck these kids. So as they're trying to get out, they realize that Billy is now getting out of his car because he's like, whatever, he's awake again. So he follows them back into the mall. And then he grabs, like he dashes like all of them. Like Max is like, "It's me, Billy, it's me." He's like, "Shut up." So he like knocks her out.
Yeah.
And then she's like out, and then he knocks out like Mike, and then he takes Elle, and he brings her back to Starcourt Mall essentially.
Yeah. So, and at this point, I think the monster turns around.
Yes,
and
he can't.
And then Steve's like, "Oh shit!" Like the monster's like turning back. He doesn't want us anymore. Right. And then all while this is happening, Dustin gets in contact with his girlfriend. Yeah. He gets in contact with Susie. Susie ends up giving him like the secret password to like, what is it, the constellation number or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That they needed to break into the safe to get the box.
And I really need to quickly talk to you about this because I know that you are not a lover of musicals, but they have like a musical moment in the episode where Dustin has to sing Never Ending Story to his girlfriend.
He was so freaking cute.
They're so adorable. I couldn't stop listening to that once I watched it. I was like, I'm going to listen to this for the rest of the night.
Yeah. It was just such a cute moment because like you can see, because she's like, Dustin, you better like sing my song for me before I give you the code. And like his face is like, you can tell that he doesn't want to do it because he knows that he's on 3 different channels. So like they're all going to hear him if he sings this song to her.
Yeah.
So he says, he's like, no. And she's like, no, you better do it. So he has to fucking sing it while everyone else is listening to him. And it's such a funny moment where like everyone just stops. Like it cuts to the station wagon. You see the mind flayer running after the car. And all you hear is Dustin and the girl singing. And I'm like, dying.
He just does.
Dying.
I'm like, oh my God, this is hilarious. Like it took me a moment to get out of it because I was like, guys, are we doing this right now for real? Like, are we really? Because it's such a high tense moment. All this shit is happening.
That's why.
And then this girl is like, let's sing. And I'm like, oh God, please, are we really doing this right now? But then once they started singing, I'm like, I'm into it. I'm totally into it.
So then they stop singing. They give the number. Hopper puts it in. It works. They get the thing. Whatever. Yeah. And then she's like, Dustin, I still want you, whatever. And Erica's like, duh. She like hangs up the fucking phone. And Dustin's like, why did you do that? She's like, that's enough.
Yeah, she fucking had the best moment. She was so fucking sassy.
She's like, it's enough. Like, and it was, by that point, I was like over it. I was like, okay, let's continue on with the episode.
Yeah. So everybody's face while they were singing was like hilarious. Like watching everyone's face. Like Erica's like giving the worst side eye ever. She's like, are you fucking serious? Like it was just a funny thing to watch. So
basically Hopper,
they get the keys. They're about to like
turn off the machine, right? Or
blow it up. I think it's like a self-destruct thing.
Okay, yeah.
So they're about to turn off the machine or shut it down, whatever. And right before they turn the fucking keys, fucking Terminator Man comes out of nowhere and like fucking has this huge one-on-one battle with Hopper right in front of the fucking machine. I'm like, did you guys have to have it right
Seriously?
Here? So whatever, they're fighting, they're kicking the shit out of each other. Hopper at one point is about to die, and then he like flips the switch. He ends up, I think, like kicking the guy into the machine, and like he dies right away. But now there's like this electric like field that the machine is now like emitting that he can't get through. So he
can't get back to Winona Ryder.
He's stuck on the one side of the machine, and all the while this is happening, like the monster's now in the fucking mall. It's about to get like, Elle's about to get eaten by it. So there's all this shit that's happening. We'll get back to that in a second. But what happens at the machine is Hopper like realizes that he can't do anything about it, and Joyce decides then to blow up the machine without him. And
he gives her like a nod to be like, just do it. I don't care.
Exactly.
But yeah, she blows up the machine, and the whole room like blows up.
Right.
And then it cuts to, and you don't have a moment really right then, like, because it cuts right back to like the mall.
Yes.
And like you're dealing with all of that, and Billy like lays Elle down for like the fucking monster. He's about to eat her. And I think then she wakes up and like she like turns, like she looks at Billy, and like they have this moment where she kind of shows him that she knows his favorite memory. Right. Or like she talks about his mom, and she's like, she was so beautiful, like in her white dress.
Yeah.
Like, I see that moment. And like it was so fucking emotional, and like you can see that his eyes are searching for that moment, and he sees it in front of him, and like it's 1 ounce of his humanity that's still there.
Yeah. And it breaks the spell, essentially.
It breaks the spell for like a second.
Right.
And he basically like puts his fists up and to block the mind flayer from like getting Elle.
Yeah.
And then I think she kind of like escapes, but then like he gets taken over. Like the monster ends up killing Billy.
He ends up killing Billy, and so Billy's now dead. So that was a big moment in the episode as well.
He does say I'm sorry, right? Like he looks at her and says I'm sorry or something.
I think he says I'm sorry to Max at the very end, which was really, really cute. Like I love the relationship that Max and him had at the very end, because I was like, seeing his struggle in the memories and where he was coming from and how he hated her all this time. And then finally at the very end, like despite how much of an asshole he was, and even despite the fact that he was possessed, she still cared about him, and she still wanted to make sure that he was going to be okay.
Well, of course, yeah.
Like, so it was a really amazing moment to see him like die in her arms, basically.
He dies. No, he dies with like the freaking like arms of the mind flayer going through his body.
Right. No, I think that he lays her down and then she's like, oh, there you are, you're dead.
Yeah, because
anyway,
he died in a really fucked up way. Like the freaking like fingers of the mind flayer like go through his eyes and shit.
Yeah,
and like go through his body and his chest. Fucked. But then at the same time, like the whole thing explodes, the vagina thing closes. So the mind flayer dies, I guess, right then.
Just in time, yeah. Right before Elle is about to get killed.
So the monster's dead now too.
Yeah. And all the while, like going back to the whole situation, there was this whole firework explosion moment that we missed talking about as well. But that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I love
all the kids that were in the car. They like turn around and go back to the mall, and then they start chucking the fireworks at the monster, but it doesn't
kill him, but like it does weaken him a little bit. Like it does kind of slow him down a little.
And it was just like very visually
but
appealing.
Like it was visually like really cool to see. So and Lucas really wanted those fireworks, so that was really cool. But then the episode kind of like cuts to black, and then it fast forwards. That's like 3 months later, where we're dealing with like now like I guess summer's kind of over and like
the end. Yeah,
Hopper's like full out dead.
He's full out dead.
Like full out dead.
Were you gagged?
I was like so sad. I
was like, what the
I don't know
fuck?
if I was gagged, but I was like, he can't be dead. He can't be dead.
Yeah, I was like, there's
but
no
I was
way.
like crying. I was like, this is so freaking sad for Elle.
I was like, no, daddy, no.
And like they're moving away. Like Jonathan,
Yeah, Jonathan, Will, and Joyce decide to move.
They're dipping Hawkins, and so everyone's saying bye, and it's a really sad scene. And like you just don't know what does that mean for the like. This whole time I'm just like, what's going to happen next season? Like, what's going to happen? Anyway, next season?
We'll talk about it at the very end of the podcast. But yeah, it was it's such a monumental thing to happen at the very end of the season where they're deciding to like uproot themselves and literally disappear from the town. Elle is gonna live with them now, so like now even she is extracted from Hawkins. So it's got all these like tied up moments, which were really, really beautiful to watch. Nancy and Jonathan have a really cute moment where they're like sad about it. Joyce, we didn't get a chance to really talk about Joyce and Hopper's relationship this season, but I thought it was a really adorable relationship that they have. It's obviously this like back and forth banter. They fight like an old married couple, which is really cute the entire season. The very end, he asks her out on a proper date and she's like, of course I'll come. And then when he dies, it's like this very emotional moment. So at the very end,
even Mike and Elle had the cutest effing moment at the end where like she admits, she's like, I heard you say like I love you, or like she's like, I know you said it. He's like, no, I didn't say that.
He's
and
like,
then she was like,
hey,
but she's like, I like I love you, whatever too. So
I love you too.
Like they had such a cute moment.
It's
and
really,
like
really
it was
adorable.
just really sad, and they don't like, even at this moment you don't really understanding that like Hopper's dead, even though like she's reading his letter, like Ella's reading the letter that he had written to her like all those like weeks before, whatever it was, months before. And so you see them kind of drive off and they're leaving Hawkins. You see the sign. And then the last final kind of cut scene after the credits, right?
Right. It's a post-credit scene.
Post-credit scene is we cut to like some
Russia.
Like coastal town in Russia, and it's like another bunker, and you basically see two like soldiers walking, and there's like two cells, and they're gonna go to the one cell, and the guy's like, no, not the American, and they go to the other cell, grab that guy, basically toss him into like a gated cell, like a bigger cell, and this fucking Demogorgon comes out, and eats the guy.
But he's like an albino Demogorgon.
Yeah,
like he like
looks
white.
different, and I'm gonna get to that in our predictions in a couple of seconds.
So that is the end of the entire season. I can't believe we got through it. I hope it wasn't too confusing for you guys. But no, it was. I thought it was a great season.
Great season. It was
overall.
Really well done.
I really do feel like they kept it so wide open that I was almost frustrated because last season they ended it off with everything was fine. They have the snowball at the very end of season 2, and the only weird thing that happens is this like tilted camera moment where you're like, in the very last 5 seconds, you're like, oh shit, like there's still some shit going down on the other side of in the upside down. But this season finale, it's like, like Joyce and Will and Elle and everybody's moving. There's that like storyline. There's a storyline that the Demogorgon is like still alive somehow. Like, how is this Demogorgon is alive if the gate is closed? How are they keeping it in captivity if he's able to like go between two worlds? And is Hopper truly the American? Like, there's so many questions. Is Elle gonna get her powers back? Like, Elle loses her powers by the end of the episode.
That's the point of a season finale, right? They leave you off with a huge cliffhanger, and
many cliffhangers.
They don't know that they're like they haven't even been picked up for season 4 yet. Like, they will be.
Oh, really?
But they haven't even officially given the like green light yet. I'm sure they've already started to write it, and they're already in the process of it. But I think when they haven't been picked up. I don't think that they're not going to get picked up. I just think that they haven't officially confirmed it. So I think they even just leave it off just so that it's a standalone season on its own and it could end there. You know what I mean? For our characters.
Interesting.
So yeah, let's get into our predictions because I think we have a lot. So
yeah.
I think for the most part, obviously the biggest one I think is like really Hopper. Is Hopper still alive?
Right.
And I still think he's alive. I definitely don't think he died in that explosion. I think he jumped into the vagina, and he is either still going to be in the Upside Down when we come back, or it's somehow a portal, and he's been somehow sent to like Russia. Like, they found him in the Upside Down, and now he's in Russia.
Oh, okay.
But
interesting.
I think my theory is still he's stuck in the Upside Down. The American that they talk about in the prison, I don't think that's going to be Hopper because I feel like that would have been too easy. And I just found it interesting that like the first thing Hopper writes in his letter to Elle, which we know that he had written months before, but still it was very ironic. He says, I feel like, or like, I'm stuck in a big dark cave and I can't get out, or something like that, something along those lines. That's how he starts his letter off to her. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, it was just a very ironic use of words that he used. And I was like, okay, is he stuck in the Upside Down? Like, what's happening?
Right.
That's where I'm at with it. And I don't think that Russia scene is a flash forward. I think it's a flashback.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I feel like it's gonna throw everyone off, and that's what I mean. I feel like it might even just be a flashback, and it kind of leads to everything that you were saying about the doctor and how he was like, we can't expose this because then the Russians will find out. But like, what if the Russians already knew about this shit? Like,
right.
You know?
Interesting. I never thought about it that way. So there's a few things that I have concerns about. The one thing is, if it's 3 months in advance, so like we see 3 months later, Joyce is now, moving on with her life and she's moving away from Hawkins. If Hopper is alive, like there's no freaking, like Will was in there for a week.
She would have, yeah. And like maybe Elle would have already found him, right? Like she would have seen him there.
I was thinking the same thing, but she doesn't have her powers anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to assume that she doesn't have her powers. So it could be
possible. Yeah.
So the one thing is that I'm thinking and I'm hoping in episode 1, season 4 is she's going to get her powers back like right away. And then she's going to do like her little mind thing and she's going to find out that he is still alive.
For sure. For sure.
I think that's how the first episode is going to go. And then it's going to be an entire season of us trying to rescue Hopper, which I'm down for. I'm totally down for a rescue mission.
Yeah.
But I'm just very intrigued as to like why this Demogorgon, if it is a present time like flash like thing, then like why is this Demogorgon still alive and like
so
how
I
did
did some research and I quickly googled the location of like where they were in Russia. Yeah. And like the history behind that specific location is like they said that apparently it was used as like a coastal sea town, not a sea town but like coastal something during before World War I or like during World War I, and like they did testing there for like military stuff. I'm not sure. So like I was thinking like what if like this type of Demogorgon came from like the water? Because it looked kind of slimy and it looked kind of like discolored. It didn't look black. Yeah. I'm like what if there's like another Upside Down like in the water or something? I don't know. I'm just that's where my head went. Right. Yeah. I don't know.
I think the thing that I worry about this show too, though, is like, what are they going to do next that's going to be like still entertaining, but also like not the same story over and over and over again?
Exactly.
So
and like not so heavily focused on the Russians again because they were on the Russians this whole season.
This entire freaking season. So yeah, I don't know what to think about this season. I'm really excited. I think as soon as I finish the season, I messaged you, N-Bea, and I said like, wouldn't the gag be if they like dropped a season 4 in 3 months from now, like when like which is when like
and it was interesting because I was talking to like one of our close friends, and he said it was really cool how like Mike, when he was talking to Elle, was like, you should come during Christmas, you should come during Thanksgiving. And I was like, it'd be so sick if they had a Christmas episode. I think that would totally work for the show. They've never done it before, and they might not be able to do it in a full season, but if they did it as a one-off episode, like a Christmas special, you know, and then it would make sense. It would totally make sense that like the kids would come into town and like stay with them for like a week or two. It would all just kind of work, and I'm hoping and praying that they are working on something like that, because that would be really cool.
That's a really good point.
And I think
I'd be totally down for that.
I think the writers did say that they don't want to go past season 4. Okay. So that might be the final season. So if they're gonna do any cool like, you know, specials, like, this is the time to do it. You know?
That's true. Oh, that would be really good if they did like a little Christmas special. I'd be so into that. Into it. All right, girl, let's get into our recap roundups.
Best moment.
So what was your best moment?
My best moment, I think, is going to go to Billy and Elle at the end. Like them seeing the same memory, her like reminding him like, this was who you were, this was your like favorite time, and like just talking about his mom, and like clearly he loved her so much. And it was a really, really beautiful moment. You see it in his eyes. And I think it just shows that all of these kind of characters, or these people, like you wonder how they got to where they were and like why they are the way they are. And for him, like that was his moment. It was just a really beautiful moment, and it made sense, and it wasn't cheesy, because sometimes they do these things, these revelations, and you're like, ew, it didn't work. But Zachary Montgomery too, as an actor, like he just played it fucking amazing, and it was just a beautiful scene. I cried so much.
Such a good moment. My moment's gonna go to Robin coming out to Steve in the bathroom, which we didn't get a chance to talk about in detail, but I thought it was such a well done and surprising storyline to take for her character, because for one, she was this kind of like cool girl. You always assume that the girl's gonna get with this guy that she's been hanging out with the entire season.
Yeah, they flipped the switch.
They fully flipped the switch. I was so shocked by it. Like, it was one of those moments where I was like, wait, what is she saying? And I'm like, oh my God, she's saying that she's a lesbian. And then I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. Like, I went through so many emotions with that moment that I was like, this is so well written. I loved the fact that they did it in the first place, because you also have to think, like, back in the day, in the 80s, like, being gay was never cool until like 10 years ago maybe. But so
because he even doesn't understand what she's saying at first. He's like,
huh?
he's like,
huh? Yeah, because he was like, but that girl that like that other person is a
she's
girl.
A girl. Like he didn't get it.
Like he couldn't connect the pieces. He's like, does that mean that you're a, like, he doesn't even have those moments. He's just like, I need to process this. Like, it was just funny to watch him. And that's the thing. I feel like it was really cool to see them do this, even though it's such a bold thing to do in that time period.
Yeah, it was for sure. And I think I did appreciate the fact that like they had a friendship. It wasn't just always romantic. It's not always like I'm your boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend. It was like more than that. It was like a special bond. Yeah.
They were really adorable. And just as an aside, that is Uma Thurman's daughter, by the way.
No way. It looks exactly like her.
Exactly like her.
Oh,
the first episode, I was watching it and I'm like, she looks like a young Uma Thurman.
Does she have the same last name?
No, it's because it's
Ethan
Uma
Hawke's
Thurman
kid?
And it's Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's kid.
Oh, she kind of looks like him too, actually.
So she has like a bit of a mix of both of them.
Yeah.
Her name's Maya Hawke, but she like looks exactly like Uma Thurman. I remember when I first watched the very first episode, I'm like, who is this girl? I looked her up and I'm like, sure enough, she was Uma Thurman's daughter. Anyway, super talented, loved her character. That was my best moment.
WTF moment.
What was your WTF moment?
WTF moment, I think it's gonna go to Hopper dying, because I was just like, wait, what? Like, what? This is for real? Like, yeah, I was really shocked.
Very shocked. My WTF moment's gonna go to the ending with the Demogorgon, because for one, they've never done a post-credit scene before, so I was like, oh, what is this? Like, I kept watching and I was like so heartbroken that Hopper died, but then when they did the post-credit scene, I'm like, oh, there's more to watch, and then I'm like, oh, he might not be dead. So and also like the whole Demogorgon thing really threw me off, because I was like, how is it still alive? I had too many questions to ask. So that was my WTF moment.
MVP.
Who's your MVP?
MVP, I think, is gonna go to Billy.
Yeah.
And he really was a huge part of the season, and he played it so well.
Yeah.
So interesting, so intriguing, and especially to the actor Zachary Montgomery, like he really held his own in this season.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if he didn't, you would have felt it. You would have been like, this is not working. But
yeah,
he was really impressive, and just coming full circle at the end and being like, I'm so sorry to Max. Like it was really, I loved his character.
It was good. No, he had a really good storyline. My MVP is gonna go to Erica, because I think this girl was such a fresh addition to the crew as well. She had some great lines. She was a lot of fun to watch, super entertaining. And now that the kids are older, having that like younger gen still in the mix of it was cool to watch, to see that, like even at the very end when Will gives her all of his like games and stuff, like makes me feel like she's gonna start to become this like nerd girl. She's not just gonna be this annoying bratty younger sister. She's also like this smart, fun, sassy
for
individual
sure.
Who like
loved her.
I loved her character for sure.
Yeah, loved her.
LVP.
What was your LVP?
LVP, I'm gonna say a bunch of people. I'm gonna say Dr. Sam Owens for like only coming in at the last like
That's
10
true.
seconds of the fucking season
useless.
And being like, oh, look what happened. So useless. And then I'd probably have to say the American government, rescue services, police, firefighters. Like, where were you guys this entire season? Not even just like the finale or the 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, where were you guys when like the sauna test, like when they broke through the wall and the
yeah.
guys like running through? Like, where were you guys the whole time?
It's so true. Like, especially considering what happened in
at
Hawkins.
the carnival when the guy got shot.
Where
like
were
what?
you? It's true. They were so useless. My LVP is gonna go to somebody that I think kind of deserves it. It's Joyce. And while I love her as a character, I love Winona Ryder, don't get me wrong, I think it just has to do with like her motivations and the fact that she like literally is splitting up the crew. I think I'm more bitter about the fact that she's splitting everybody up. I understand her motivations as a mom to be like, let me get my fucking kids out of this town. This is too crazy. This is too much. But also like, I wanted her to like fall in love with Hopper, and she didn't do that. But
yeah, but they will. Maybe
I feel like it'll all happen for sure. Like they're gonna get their happy ending. But seeing her do all these things and like making all these choices, I was like, girl, why you gotta do these things to me right now? So I mean, she did close the gate, or she just did destroy the machine, but she also like kind of low-key killed Hopper. So I'm like, girl, why you do that to me?
The best line.
What was your best line?
Best line is gonna go to Erica, our girl Erica.
Yeah.
This line was just, it killed me when she was like, you can't spell America without Erica.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually so true. I never knew that.
She's like, I am very patriotic.
I think she like honestly stole my heart. Like, she was the funniest addition between her and Dustin.
Yeah.
Like, they were cracking me up.
So funny.
Like honestly, she was more lit than Lucas, her brother, who's been on the show for like 3 seasons now. So she made a bigger imprint. I personally feel like, in the last season.
I agree.
Loved it.
My best line is gonna go to that final sequence where Ella's reading her letter, and I'm just gonna read a bit of it. It's the very end where he says, "Keep on growing, kid. Don't let me stop you. Make mistakes, learn from them, and when life hurts you, because it will, remember the hurt. The hurt is good. It means you're out of that cave. But please, if you don't mind, for the sake of your poor old dad, keep the door open 3 inches." And I wanted to bawl I think I did cry quite a bit at the very end.
For sure.
It was such an emotional moment for him to say that like last line. I was like, even talking about it now gives me so many goosebumps, because like it was such an amazing like finale thing to see and hear. And I was like, oh, Hopper, oh, he has a heart, this poor man. Like, and the fact that he calls himself like Elle's dad like kills me every time. Like every time, the fact that this man who was like single his entire life ever since his daughter died now has adopted this girl into his life, and he's just doing the best he can as a father. It's just like one of my favorite storylines ever, and he's so fucking hot too. So I like there's that as well.
Okay, guys, I think that's it. Right?
That's the episode, guys.
That's it.
Thank you for checking it out. Now we'd like to shout out to our patrons of the episode, our Rewinder squad, White and Wesley, our Lit Rewinders, Tina Ann, Sarge, Serena, Kate, and Soleil, and our Mommy Rewinders, Becca, Sarah, Tamala, and Grace.
And if you would like to join our Patreon family, check us out at patreon.com/recap_rewind. If you join, you'll get access to all things Recap Rewind, exclusive content, and updates.
And also be sure you guys are checking us out on all of our socials, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. And you can find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes. If you're listening to it on a podcast, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, following, reviewing, and commenting to stay engaged with us at Recap Rewind. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.